What's the worst unboxing you've ever seen? Maybe a new phone with a cracked screen, or a collectible that arrived in a crushed box. It's frustrating, right? But what if I told you about the very first an unboxing that went so catastrophically wrong, it broke the entire world forever? This isn't about a faulty gadget, it's about the moment humanity's warranty on paradise expired. We're talking about the ultimate unboxing gone wrong, and at the center of it all is a woman named Pandora. Now, if you've heard her name, you probably think of Pandora's box. It's a phrase we use all the time to describe a can of worms, a decision that unleashes a torrent of unforeseen problems. But the story behind that phrase is so much darker, so much more complex than you might remember from school. Because Pandora wasn't just some curious woman who stumbled upon a mysterious container. No, she was designed. She was a weapon, a beautifully crafted, divinely engineered curse, sent by a furious king of the gods to punish not just one person, but every single human being, for all of eternity. Imagine a world without pain, without sickness, without jealousy or grief. The ancient Greeks imagined such a time, a golden age where mortals lived like gods, free from toil and sorrow. It was a paradise, but this paradise was about to receive a special delivery, a gift from the heavens. This gift wasn't gold or nectar, it was a person, the very first woman. Her name was Pandora, which means all gifted, because every god on Mount Olympus had a hand in her creation, each one adding a specific, and sometimes sinister, talent to her being. She was given beauty that could rival a goddess, a voice that could charm any man, and a mind that was woven with lies, deceit, and an insatiable, gnawing curiosity. This story isn't just about a woman in a box, it's a story of cosmic revenge. It's about a titan who defied the gods to help humanity, and the god king Zeus, who would stop at nothing to make everyone pay for that defiance. Pandora was his masterpiece of vengeance. She was the Trojan horse, walking into the heart of humanity, not with soldiers, but with a fatal flaw embedded in her very nature. She was sent to a world that knew no evil, carrying a jar in the original myths. It was a pithos, a large ceramic jar, not a box that contained every single plague, sorrow, and hardship imaginable. And the gods knew, they counted on the fact, that she wouldn't be able to resist taking a peek inside. So, the question is, was she a villain or a victim, a pawn in a divine game, or the architect of our suffering? To really understand how we got here, we have to go back. We have to look at the crime that lit the fuse for this entire disaster. It all started with an act of rebellion, and with fire. So, how did humanity end up on Zeus's bad side? It all comes down to one of the most famous figures in Greek mythology, a titan named Prometheus. His name literally means forethought, and he was the guy who could see the bigger picture. Unlike the other gods who often viewed mortals as insignificant playthings, Prometheus was humanity's biggest champion. In some versions of the myths, he and his brother Epimetheus were even tasked with creating all the animals, and, eventually, humans. So, he had a soft spot for us. He saw our potential, our spark, and it pained him to see us struggling. You have to imagine what life was like for early humans in this mythological age. Before Prometheus's big move, we were pathetic creatures. We lived in caves, shivering in the dark, huddled together for warmth. We were at the mercy of the elements, defenseless against predators that stalked the night. We ate our food raw. Life was brutal, short, and filled with fear. We were basically just another animal, with no clear advantage. Zeus seemed to be perfectly fine with this arrangement. Keeping humanity weak and dependent meant they would never dream of challenging the gods. They would stay in their place. But Prometheus saw this as a profound injustice. He saw these beings he helped create, shivering and afraid, and he decided he had to do something. He knew what humanity needed. They needed a game. They needed a piece of the divine. They needed fire. Fire was everything. It was warmth against the biting cold, light in the suffocating darkness. It was a weapon to ward off beasts, a tool to cook food and make it safer and more nutritious, and a forge to create tools, pottery, and eventually, civilization itself. Fire was the key to unlocking human potential. The problem, Zeus had explicitly forbidden it. He kept fire for the gods alone, a symbol of their power and superiority. Prometheus, living up to his name, hatched a plan. He knew a direct confrontation was suicide. So, he used his cunning. In one of the most famous accounts, he traveled to Mount Olympus, the home of the gods. He approached the forge of Hephaestus, the god of smithing and fire, or in other versions, the sun chariot of Apollo. With breathtaking audacity, he stole a single, glowing ember of the sacred fire. He couldn't just carry it in his hand, so he concealed it inside a hollow stalk of a giant fennel plant. This was the perfect hiding spot. The stalk's dry, pithy interior would smolder slowly, keeping the ember alive during his long journey back to Earth without giving off a telltale plume of smoke. When he returned and delivered this gift to humanity, the world changed overnight. For the first time, humans had power over their environment. They gathered around campfires, creating communities and sharing stories. They began to build, to create, to think. They were no longer just surviving, they were starting to thrive. It was the dawn of civilization, all thanks to one rebellious titan. But this incredible act of compassion came at a terrible cost. From his throne on Olympus, Zeus saw the flickering lights on the dark earth, and his fury was absolute. This was not just theft, this was defiance. A lowly titan had disobeyed a direct order and, worse, had given mortals a taste of divine power. He had started to close the gap between man and God. Zeus knew this could not go unpunished. But he wasn't just going to punish Prometheus. No, that was too simple. He decided that humanity, for daring to accept this stolen gift, would pay a price so steep it would make them curse the day they ever felt the warmth of a flame. His revenge would be a masterstroke of cruelty, a beautiful, irresistible poison, and he was about to command the gods to create it. So, what does a god-king do when he wants revenge? A god like Zeus, with absolute power and a fragile ego, doesn't just throw a lightning bolt and call it a day. This wasn't a party. It was a work order. He laid out his brilliant, terrible plan and commanded them to begin. Zeus gave him the most important task of all. Hermes leaned in close to the beautiful creation and whispered into her mind. They named her Pandora the All-Gifted, because every god had given her something, but it was a name dripping with cruel irony. She was not a gift for mankind's benefit. She was a gift that would cost them everything. The trap was set. The bait was perfect. And now, it was time for delivery. He gifted her with, as Hesiod so bluntly puts it, the mind of a bitch and a thievish nature. He wove in a silver tongue capable of spinning convincing lies, and then he planted the seed of the entire disaster, a powerful, overwhelming, and divinely engineered curiosity. It wasn't just a personality quirk, it was a programmed directive. A Nituna so strong, it would eventually overpower any warning, any fear, any ounce of self-control. First up was Hephaestus, the master craftsman, the god of the forge, who could create anything from thunderbolts to intricate automata. Zeus ordered him to take clay, mix it with water, and sculpt a figure in the image of the immortal goddesses. Imagine Hephaestus, the strong, often mocked god, carefully molding the earth. He shapes the curve of a smile, the delicate arch of a foot, creating a form so lifelike, so breathtakingly beautiful. It seemed ready to draw breath even before it was alive. This was a direct, mocking parallel to Prometheus's own creation of man from clay. Zeus was essentially saying, "You created something for them, I'll create something for them, too." That's too quick, too merciful. No, his revenge had to be elegant. It had to be poetic. It had to be a punishment that kept on punishing, a wound that would never heal. He decided he wouldn't destroy humanity with a flood or a fire. He would trick them into destroying themselves. He would give them a gift. A kalan, as the ancient poet Hesiod called Eta beautiful evil, and her name would be Pandora. Zeus summoned the gods to the celestial halls of Mount Olympus. Once the form was perfect, the divine assembly line began. Each god was to bestow a gift, adding a layer to the beautiful deception. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was first. She draped the clay figure in irresistible charm and grace, an aura of desire that would make any mortal or god weak in the knees. She gave her a gaze that promised paradise and a beauty that could make men forget their loyalties, their duties, their very sense of reason. Next came Athena, the goddess of wisdom and craft. She dressed Pandora in stunning, silvery robes and a beautifully embroidered veil. She taught her the domestic arts, how to weave intricate patterns on a loom and handle a needle with expert skill. This was a crucial part of the trap-making. Pandora appeared to be the perfect partner, the ideal wife, a blessing for any man's home. But then came Hermes, the trickster, the messenger god who flew on winged sandals and governed commerce, but also theft, lies, and cunning. Finally, the graces and persuasion adorned her with golden necklaces and other fine jewelry, making her glitter and shine. She was complete, a masterpiece of divine collaboration. So, the weapon is built. Pandora, the beautiful, evil, is ready. but a weapon is useless without a target. Zeus's plan wasn't just to drop her into the middle of a random human village. He was the guy who acted first and thought later. He was impulsive, not as cunning as his brother, and perhaps a bit naive. Prometheus knew his brother's weakness. He knew Epimetheus was good-hearted but easily swayed. There became a distant, buzzing noise in the back of his mind, drowned out by the beauty standing right in front of him. It's a pithos, a massive ceramic jar, beautifully decorated but sealed tight. And right there, contradicting it, is a tangible, breathtaking reality. The perfect woman, and a mysterious, intriguing treasure. The jar itself seems to hum with importance. A secret from the gods, just sitting there. The temptation is immense, not just for Pandora, but for Epimetheus too. All he has to do is remember his brother's words. All he has to do is say no. And this, Hermes adds, with a twinkle in his eye, is her dowry, a special wedding present from Zeus himself. All the gods have contributed. It contains, well, that's a secret. The only condition is that it must never, ever be opened. He's looking at a goddess, and she's being offered to him. How could this be a trick? How could something so perfect be a curse? So, before Zeus could make his move, and in some versions, even as he was being chained to the rock for his punishment, Prometheus sent a desperate message to his dear, simple brother. His revenge was personal. He needed to aim this beautiful, ticking time bomb right at the heart of his enemy, and that meant going after the one person Prometheus cared about most, his brother Epip. Now, while Prometheus's name means forethought, his brother's name, Epimetheus, means the exact opposite. Afterthought. You can imagine the urgency. Epimetheus, listen to me. Listen carefully. Zeus is coming for us. He's not going to attack you with lightning or monsters. He's going to use trickery. He will offer you a gift. It will be something so wonderful, so tempting, that you won't want to refuse it. But you must. I don't care if he offers you the nectar of the gods, or a mountain of gold. Accept nothing from Zeus. Send it back. Do you hear me? The fate of humanity depends on you remembering my words. It was a clear, stark warning, born from Prometheus's deep understanding of divine politics and his love for his brother. Don't trust the gifts of a vengeful god. And then, one day, it happens. A shimmering light descends from the sky. It's Hermes, the messenger god, with his winged sandals and mischievous smile. And by the hand, he leads Pandora. Epimetheus stands there, probably dumbfounded. Before him is the most captivating creature he has ever laid eyes on. She radiates a divine charm. Her eyes sparkle with a manufactured innocence, and her very presence seems to make the world brighter. Hermes presents her with a flourish. Epimetheus, son of Iapetus, he might say, Lord Zeus sends you this gift. He wishes to put the unpleasantness with your brother behind him. He offers you this woman, Pandora, to be your wife, a companion for you and a blessing for your home. Epimetheus is completely mesmerized. The words of his brother, the solemn warning, they start to fade. And then, to seal the deal, Hermes gestures to a couple of other divine attendants. So now the stage is perfectly set. The warning from Prometheus, the man of forethought, is hanging in the air. So there he is, Epimetheus. On one shoulder, he has the voice of his brother, Prometheus, the wisest person he knows, screaming, it's a trap. Say no. But right in front of him, well, everything he could ever want. Pandora's not just beautiful. She's mesmerizing, a living, breathing work of art. And next to her is this mysterious, intriguing jar. The ultimate unopened mystery box. The warning from his brother is an abstract concept, a memory. The gift from Zeus is a very, very tempting reality. This is the moment where afterthought becomes his destiny. Let's put ourselves in his shoes for a second. His brother, the genius of the family, is gone. He's being brutally punished for helping humanity. Epimetheus is alone. He's likely living with a mix of grief, fear, and guilt. And then the king of the universe sends his personal messenger down with what appears to be an olive branch. A peace offering. And that peace offering is a goddess-like woman. What's going through his head? He starts to rationalize. It's the classic human response, when our desires clash with our better judgment. He probably thinks, okay. Prometheus said, don't accept any gifts. But he's a rebel. He sees Zeus as a tyrant. Maybe he's biased. Maybe Zeus isn't all bad. He's the king, after all. What if this is a genuine attempt at reconciliation? If I throw this incredible gift back in his face, I'm not just being cautious, I'm being insulting. I would be directly offending the most powerful being in existence. That could make things so much worse. Maybe accepting the gift is the safer option. You can almost hear the gears grinding, trying to justify the decision he's already made in his heart. And he looks at Pandora. She's not some hideous monster or a terrifying gorgon. She's perfect. She smiles at him, and his heart probably melts. His brother's warning was about a Kakan, an evil. But this is a Kalin, a beautiful thing. How can they be the same? He's not thinking with his head anymore. He's thinking with his heart, with his loneliness, with his desire. He is living up to his name, thinking after the fact. The consequences are a blurry, distant problem. The beautiful woman is a clear present solution. So, he does it. With a nervous but hopeful smile, he turns to Hermes. He accepts. He reaches out and takes Pandora's hand. In that single moment, humanity's fate is sealed. He welcomes her into his home, a home that has, until this point, been a place of simple, ignorant bliss. He has them bring the heavy pithos, the jar, inside, and set it in a place of honor. He has just willingly invited the Trojan horse through the gates. Hermes, his mission accomplished, probably gives a little smirk that Epimetheus completely misses, and with a flash of light, he's gone. Epimetheus and Pandora, and for a little while, it must have felt like paradise. He's won. He's not alone anymore. He has a companion who is charming, beautiful, and divine. He probably feels brilliant, thinking he's navigated a tricky political situation and come out on top. He proved his paranoid brother wrong, but as they settle into their new life together, the jar sits there, in the corner of the room, silent, sealed, and radiating a subtle, unspoken challenge. The gift has been accepted. The trap is now inside the house. And the ticking has begun. For a little while, life was perfect, or at least, it seemed that way. Epimetheus had a beautiful, charming companion, and Pandora had a new world to explore. They were living in the golden age of humanity, a time of blissful ignorance where labor was unnecessary and sorrow was unknown. Now multiply that by 1,000 and imagine it was implanted in your soul by a god. That's what Pandora was dealing with. The jar started to whisper to her. He didn't force Pandora's hand. He just created a situation where she had no other choice. Her own mind became her prison, and the key to escape was right there. Her rationalizations probably grew more desperate. Epimetheus is too simple. He's just scared because of his brother. But this gift wasn't for Prometheus. It was for me. It's my dowry. A bride is supposed to open her dowry. It would be rude not to. The logic became more and more twisted. As the divine compulsion overpowered her reason, the whispers became a roar, an unbearable pressure inside her skull demanding release. Finally, one day, when Epimetheus was out, she stood before it, trembling. The battle was over. Her programming had won. Her hand, guided by a force she could no longer resist, reached for the lid. Not with an actual voice, but in that way an obsession speaks to you. What's inside? It seemed to ask. A gift from the gods. It must be glorious. Jewels, silken gowns, more beautiful than the ones you wear. Maybe it holds the secret to eternal youth. Why would they give you something wonderful and forbid you from enjoying it? But in the corner of their home, the jar sat. At first it was probably just part of the furniture, a strange but beautiful wedding present. Epimetheus, being a simple man, likely told Pandora the one rule. My brother said never to trust Zeus, so we leave it alone? And then promptly forgot about it, happy to have his new wife. He was a man of afterthought. After all, the immediate pleasure of Pandora's company was all he needed. But Pandora was different. Pandora was designed. Remember that little gift from Hermes? The insatiable, gnawing curiosity. It wasn't just a personality trait. It was a piece of divine code, a Trojan virus uploaded directly into her mind, and it began to run its program. At first, it was a quiet hum in the back of her consciousness, a gentle pull. While she was weaving a gift from Athena, her eyes would drift over to the sealed lid. While she was enchanting Epimetheus with her Aphrodite-given charm, a part of her mind would be wondering about the weight of the jar, the texture of its seal. This wasn't normal curiosity. You know that feeling when you see a link online, the perfect clickbait, and your brain just screams, I have to know. She would have fought it. She would have remembered the warning from Epimetheus. She would have tried to be the perfect wife, to be obedient. But the whispers grew louder. The jar didn't just sit in the corner anymore. It dominated the room. It became the sun around which her thoughts orbited. She'd walk past it and feel a physical pull, as if a string were tied from her heart to its lid. She'd run her fingers over the cool ceramic, trying to guess its contents by feel. She'd lie awake at night, staring into the darkness, but all she could see was the outline of the jar, pulsing with secrets. This was a psychological torture designed by a master. Zeus knew that the worst punishments are the ones we inflict on ourselves. This is the moment, the point of no return, the single action that will forever divide history into before and after. Imagine the scene. Pandora is alone in the house. The air is still and heavy with anticipation. It was a sound, a horrifying, collective hiss, like the escape of pressurized gas. And then they came. Out of the mouth of the jar, a dark, shadowy cloud began to pour. A torrent of intangible horrors taking shape. They buzzed around Pandora's head, their phantom whispers, a cacophony of malice. She slammed the heavy lid back down onto the jar. Thud. The sound echoed in the now defiled silence. But it was too late. The stable door was shut long after the horses had bolted. The vast majority of the spirits were already out, a dark stain spreading across the world, invisible but utterly devastating. The unboxing was complete, and the world would never, ever be the same. The beautiful evil had delivered her payload. She probably stumbled back, her hands flying to her face, a scream catching in her throat. This wasn't what she expected. Where were the jewels? Where were the divine treasures? The beautiful, perfect world she knew was being violated, corrupted in real time, right before her eyes. They weren't monsters with claws and teeth. They were worse. They were concepts. They were feelings. They were spirits. The kakoi, the evils of the world, unleashed from their prison. The only sound is the frantic pounding of her own heart. The internal war is over. The whispers have won. Her hands, trembling slightly, close around the heavy lid of the It's not a small, elegant box like we see in modern paintings. This is a big earthenware jar, sealed with clay and cord. It would have taken real effort to open. She struggles with it. Her fingers dig into the seal, chipping away at the hardened clay. For a fleeting second, maybe a sliver of doubt returns. Then came old age, a stooped, grey shadow that groaned as it emerged, its touch withering the vibrant plants near the doorway. Outpoured toil, a relentless, heavy spirit that promised endless, back-breaking labor. Then jealousy, a bitter, stinging essence that made Pandora's own heart clench with a new and awful feeling. One after another, they came, a ghastly procession of misery. Grief, a weeping, formless spectre. Hatred, a sharp, burning wisp of smoke. Famine, a gaunt, skeletal shape that seemed to suck the very light from the room. Lies, deceit, war, poverty, despair. Every single hardship, every sorrow, every pain that humanity had been shielded from for its entire existence was now boiling out of this one container. A flash of Epimethus's trusting face, a faint echo of Prometheus's warning. Is this really a good idea? But the divine compulsion from Hermes is too strong. It's a tidal wave of pure need, washing away all hesitation. It's no longer a choice. It's an inevitability. With a final grunt of effort, the seal breaks. The lid groans, scrapes against the ceramic rim, and then it lifts. It wasn't a glorious flash of light or a shower of gold coins. First came sickness, a green, miasmic vapor that slithered out and immediately began to seep into the very air, carrying with it fever and decay. They didn't just fly out and disperse. They swarmed. They were chaotic, malevolent, and free for the first time. Horrified by what she had done, realizing the catastrophic scale of her mistake, she acted instinctively. The lid is shut, but the silence that follows is 1,000 times worse than the hissing chaos that came before it. The room is quiet, but the world isn't. Pandora stands frozen, the reality of her actions crashing down on her like a physical weight. She hasn't just broken a rule, she has broken the world. Zeus's vengeance is complete, and it is more terrible than anyone could have imagined. Because the evils that escaped didn't just fly away, they were like a dye dropped into a glass of clear water, spreading instantly, invisibly, and irrevocably, tinting everything forever. What did it feel like for humanity? We have to try and imagine the unimaginable. For generations, mortals had lived in a state of perfect contentment. They didn't know stress or anxiety. Their bodies never ached. Relationships were simple, pure, and free of resentment. Suddenly, that all changed. Out in a field, a man who had spent his life joyfully gathering fruits suddenly feels a sharp, stabbing pain in his back. He grunts, confused, This sensation is entirely new. It is the arrival of toil, of physical pain. Elsewhere, two friends who have only ever known harmony find themselves in a sharp, bitter argument over something trivial. Their voices rise, their faces flush with a hot, ugly emotion. It's anger, it's hatred. They don't even have words for what they are feeling, but it poisons the air between them. The effects were insidious and intimate. A woman looks at her neighbor's beautiful weaving and feels a sour twist in her stomach. It's envy. A man looks at his reflection in a pond and, for the first time, doesn't see a timeless being. He sees a faint line at the corner of his eye, a hint of gray in his hair. Old age has begun its slow, relentless work. A child stumbles and scrapes his knee, and instead of just getting up, he cries from a new sensation called pain, and his mother feels a new, sharp pang in her chest called fear. Every interaction was now suspect, every relationship now vulnerable. And what about Pandora and Epimetheus? Their perfect home became ground zero for the disaster. Epimetheus, returning from whatever simple, pleasant task he was doing, would have felt it immediately. The air itself felt different, heavy and sharp. He walks in to find Pandora, the radiant gift from the gods, crumpled on the floor, weeping with a depth of sorrow that no human had ever experienced before. It's grief, it's despair. His eyes dart to the jar, and he sees the broken seal. And in that moment, Afterthought finally understands. The warning from his brother wasn't paranoia, it was a prophecy. He looks at his beautiful wife, and for the first time, his adoration is tainted. A hot spike of blame shoots through him. How could she? Why would she do this? The beautiful evil has done her job so well that she has even infected the very man who was supposed to love her, turning his affection into a new, ugly thing called resentment. The Golden Age ended not with a bang, but with the first domestic argument. Life was no longer a gift to be enjoyed. It was a struggle to be endured. Humanity's new, cruel reality had begun. They were no longer innocent children in a divine garden. They were now self-aware, suffering beings, trapped in a world filled with invisible enemies they couldn't fight, because those enemies were now inside them. The world is broken. The air is thick with invisible poisons. Pandora and Epimetheus are huddled in their home, which is no longer a sanctuary but a crime scene. The silence is deafening, filled with the ghosts of what they've lost. Pandora is probably weeping, consumed by a guilt so profound it's a physical force. Epimetheus is likely pacing, a storm of blame, fear, and regret raging inside him. The jar, the source of all this misery, sits there, now a monument to their catastrophic failure. It's a symbol of divine revenge, mission accomplished. But the story isn't quite over. In the midst of her despair, as the full weight of her actions crushes her, Pandora hears something. It's not the hateful hissing of the evils that escaped. It's a tiny, faint sound coming from inside the pit. A fluttering, a faint, high-pitched tapping, like a trapped bird beating its wings against the inside of the jar. It's so quiet. She might have thought she was imagining it, but it persists. A faint, almost desperate whisper, barely audible. "Let me out, please. Let me out." Imagine the terror and confusion. Her first instinct would be to recoil. No, never again. Opening that lid was the worst mistake in the history of existence. Whatever is still in there must be the king of all evils, the final boss, the most terrible spirit of all, saved by Zeus for the final, brutal blow. Epimetheus, hearing the sound too, would surely have yelled at her, "Don't you dare touch it. Haven't you done enough?" He would have seen it as the ultimate temptation, a final test she was doomed to fail. But this felt different. The voice, if you could call it that, wasn't malicious or threatening. It was pleading, it was gentle, and Pandora, despite her terror, is drawn to it. Maybe it was a flicker of her original, non-weaponized nature. Or maybe, having already unleashed the worst, she felt she had nothing left to lose. What more damage could be done? The world was already ruined. She approaches the jar, her hands shaking, not from divinely implanted curiosity this time, but from a terrifying mix of dread and a sliver of ... something else. She hesitates. The fate of the world has already been sealed once by her hand. Does she risk it again? The little voice continues, a gentle, persistent call from within the darkness. Taking a deep breath, and perhaps against Epimetheus's frantic protests, she makes a conscious choice. This time, it's not an irresistible compulsion. It's a decision. She slowly, carefully, lifts the lid of the jar, just a crack, and out flutters not a dark specter or a wisp of smoke, but a tiny, shimmering, dragonfly-like creature. It glows with a soft, warm light, a stark contrast to the shadowy horrors that preceded it. It circles Pandora's head once, its light a soothing balm against the newly raw emotions of grief and fear. It doesn't fix anything. The sickness is still in the air, toil still weighs on men's bones, and old age is still coming for everyone. But this little spirit brings something new into the equation. This is Elpis. In ancient Greek, the word Elpis is complex. We translate it as hope, but it also carries the meaning of expectation, or anticipation of the future. And as Elpis flew out into the now suffering world, it didn't take away the pain, but it gave humanity a tool to endure it. It was the whisper in the dark that said, tomorrow might be better. It was the strength to plant a seed in a field now cursed with famine. It was the reason to get up in the morning when grief made you want to stay in bed forever. It was the small, stubborn light that refused to be extinguished by the overwhelming darkness. So, the world is now filled with misery and suffering, but it's also got this one tiny, shimmering spirit of hope flying around. And this is where the myth gets really complicated and, honestly, incredibly profound. This is Pandora's true legacy. The question we're left with is, what was the deal with hope? Was its release a happy accident, a small victory for humanity? Or was it the final, most brilliant, and most cruel twist of Zeus's entire revenge scheme? The answer completely changes how we view Pandora and the entire story. Let's look at the dark interpretation first, the one that many classical scholars lean towards. Remember, the original Greek word is Elpis, which doesn't just mean a fluffy, optimistic hope. It also means expectation, or even delusion. In this view, Zeus wasn't being merciful. He was being a master psychological torturer. Think about it. If you're living in a world of constant, unrelenting pain, sickness, and grief, with absolutely no hope of things ever getting better, what might you do? You might give up. You might find a strange peace in despair. You might, to put it bluntly, check out. There's a finality to absolute hopelessness. But what if, in the midst of all that suffering, someone dangles a tiny carrot in front of you? What if there's a little voice constantly whispering, don't worry, it'll get better. Just hold on a little longer. Tomorrow's the day. That's Elpis. Hope, in this sense, isn't a comfort, it's a leash. It's the thing that forces you to endure every single one of the evils Zeus unleashed. It keeps you chained to your suffering, always expecting a relief that may never come. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche famously called hope the worst of all evils, because it prolongs the torments of man. From this perspective, trapping all the evils with hope inside the jar, and ensuring hope was the last one out, was Zeus's mind. It guaranteed that humanity would suffer his punishment to its fullest extent, day after day, generation after generation, always clinging to a sliver of expectation that kept them from giving up. But then there's the other interpretation, the one that has become more popular over time. This is the view that sees hope as our salvation. It's the antidote. The world is full of darkness, yes, but hope is the one candle that allows us to navigate it. It's the fundamental driver of human resilience. It's why we fight diseases, why we rebuild after disasters, why we get out of bed in the morning when we're grieving. In this light, Pandora's final act wasn't another mistake. It was an act of redemption. She unleashed the curse, but she also unleashed the cure, or, at least, the only thing that makes the curse bearable. This interpretation transforms Pandora from a simple pawn, or a villain, into something much more complex. A tragic hero. She is the embodiment of humanity itself, created by the gods, blessed with incredible gifts, but also saddled with fatal flaws. She makes a terrible mistake that brings suffering into the world, but she is also the one who provides the means to endure that suffering. The myth stops being just a story about divine punishment and becomes a profound statement about the human condition. Life is a struggle. It's filled with hardship and pain, but baked into our existence is this incredible, sometimes irrational, capacity for hope that allows us to find meaning, to strive, to love, and to carry on. So, what is Pandora's legacy? Is she the bringer of doom, or the mother of our resilience? The myth's enduring power is that it never really tells us. It just holds up a mirror and asks, in your life, is hope a blessing, or is it the cruelest part of the curse? Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of mythology's most foundational and misunderstood stories. From Prometheus's defiant act of giving us fire, to Zeus's beautifully cruel revenge, and finally, to Pandora's fateful decision. This is a story that tries to answer the biggest question of all. Why is life so hard? But it also gives us a clue about how to survive it. The world may be full of evils, but it is the presence of hope, Elpis, that allows us to face them. Let me know in the comments what you think was hope, the final twist of Zeus' cruel joke, or was it our greatest salvation? And if you found this story of divine politics fascinating, you will not want to miss our next video, where we explore the tragic tale of Icarus and the age-old warning about flying too close to the sun. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.